Hey, what is going on, Twintendo Nation? Hope you're having an awesome day. Now that Pokemon Sun and Moon have finally been released, we know that Game Freak are working hard on a brand new Pokemon game. Now, I'm not going to be discussing what the next game will be and what console it will come out on, but after playing through Sun and Moon and observing the Pokemon Company's recent behaviour, I have discovered that there are quite a few hints that Diamond and Pearl remakes are on Game Freak's radar. So in today's video, I will be going over 6 pieces of evidence that hint at a Diamond and Pearl remake. Now, before we start today's video, question of the day to you guys: what would you like to see in a Diamond and Pearl remake? Let me know in the comments below. And without further ado guys, let's start this video. So on the release of Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon, it is possible to get a special Pokemon at the start of the game. This Pokemon is Munchlax, which is Snorlax's pre-evolution. This special Munchlax is a great addition to the team, as once it evolves into a Snorlax, it can use the unique Z move, Pulverizing Pancake. Now, I'm sure you guys know Munchlax was first introduced in Diamond and Pearl, so it can't just be a coincidence that Game Freak chose a 4th generation Pokemon to be their special launch Pokemon. Now, if we go back 3 years to Pokemon X and Y, Game Freak did the exact same thing to hint at the Pokemon Ruby and Pokemon Sapphire remakes. Now, at the launch of X and Y, it was possible to receive a special Torchic with the ability Speed Boost. Now, as you guys know, Torchic is one of the 3rd generation starter Pokemon, and eventually it evolves into Blaziken. Now, the only reason I mention this is because in Pokemon X and Y, Blaziken is the only Hoenn starter that can Mega Evolve. When Pokemon X and Y came out, fans were surprised that they couldn't Mega Evolve either Swampert or Sceptile, and then around 6 months later after the release of X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire were announced to the public. Now, I'm pretty sure I don't have to explain that the relationship between the special Torchic being given away at the start of Pokemon X and Y and the announcement of Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire just a few months after is no coincidence. So I think it's fair that we can make the same assumptions about this special Munchlax that is being given away at the start of Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon, that it hints towards a Diamond and Pearl remake. Now, one of the best Pokemon introduced in Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon has to be Silvally. It's strong and has a solid design, yet the blueprints to this artificial Pokemon was actually revealed 10 years ago when Pokemon Diamond and Pearl were released in Japan. Silvally shares a lot of its features with the alpha Pokemon Arceus. First of all, Silvally has a very similar ability, if not pretty much identical ability, to Arceus' ability Multi-Type. And as I'm sure you're all aware, Silvally's ability is called the RKS system, and it's called the RKS system because it's a phonetic pun which plays off Arceus' name. However, not only does Silvally and Arceus share a similar appearance and ability, their signature moves, Multi-Attack and Judgment, are pretty much identical, as both moves types vary on which type of item the Pokemon is holding. There are only 2 differences between these moves. Multi-Attack is a physical move, whereas Judgment is a special attacking move. Also, Judgment has an extra 10 base power, dealing 100 damage. But apart from that, the similarities between the 2 Pokemon are very deliberate, and it is a clear throwback to the days of Diamond and Pearl. Could it be a hint that Game Freak are making remakes? I'll leave that up to you. 4 days before Pokemon Sun and Moon were released everywhere but Europe, thanks Nintendo, the Japanese Pokemon Company YouTube channel posted a very interesting video that strongly relates to the Sinnoh region. This short video was styled to be like a storybook aimed at children. Now, what's interesting about this story is that the 3 main characters in this storybook are the Sinnoh starters Turtwig, Chimchar and Piplup. Now, there are a few Pokemon that are from previous generations, such as Meowth and Aipom, that make an appearance in the storybook, but there are also a lot of Pokemon that make cameos that were first introduced in Diamond and Pearl, such as Baneri, Pachirisu, Weasel and Munchlax yet again. So why did the Pokemon Company produce a video focusing so strongly on Sinnoh Pokemon just a few days before the first 7th generation game came out? Is it to start hyping up the potential of a Sinnoh remake, or is it simply just a coincidence? In Pokemon X and Pokemon Y, a lot of the Hoenn Pokemon were missing from the Kalos regional decks. Then when Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire came out, players were able to catch the rest of the Hoenn Pokemon that weren't available in X and Y. So when we look at the Alola regional Pokedex, it is no surprise to find that there is a lack of Sinnoh Pokemon. Overall, there is 29 Sinnoh Pokemon in the regional decks. However, if you played Pokemon Diamond, Pearl or Platinum, you'll know that a lot of the Sinnoh Dex contains Pokemon that are evolutions or pre-evolutions to old Pokemon. For example, in terms of pre-evolutions, there's Bonsly, Mime Jr. and Happiny. And there are also Pokemon that evolve from older Pokemon such as Magmortar, Rhyperior and Weavile. Now these pre-evolutions and evolutions are included in Pokemon Sun and Moon because the origin Pokemon such as Chansey and Sneasel are also included in the game. So if we take away these pre-evolved Pokemon and Pokemon that evolved from older Pokemon, then there are only 15 original Sinnoh Pokemon such as Lucario and Garchomp, which is barely anything. Now granted, there aren't many Pokemon from the other generations in the Alola Regional Dex as well, however the Sinnoh Pokedex has the least original Pokemon, whereas unsurprisingly, the Kalos Pokedex has the least amount of Pokemon altogether with just 16. So it can be argued that the lack of Sinnoh Pokemon is a hint towards a remake this generation, since it is very similar to what happened in Pokemon X and Pokemon Y with the Hoenn Pokemon. In Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon, one of the main concepts in the story is the wormholes that are produced by Ultra Beasts. These wormholes are unstable portals connecting the Pokemon world to Ultra Space, which is where the Ultra Beasts originate from. It is not known how they form, but they are very similar to the Dimensional Rift Cyrus, the leader of Team Galactic in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, tries to create using the power of Dialga and Palkia. Both Dialga and Palkia are very similar to the Ultra Beasts, as they live in the temporal and spatial dimensions respectively, just how the Ultra Beasts live in Ultra Space. They all live in alternate dimensions. And while we're on the subject of Dialga and Palkia, if you go to the Dimensional Research Lab in He City, you'll be able to find this passage in a bookcase saying Palkia is total control over the boundaries of space, enable it to transport itself to faraway places or even other dimensions. Now the same can be said of Giratina, who originates from the Distortion World, which again is another alternate dimension. Now in Pokemon Platinum, the player gets to visit the Distortion World, unlike the temporal and spatial dimensions. The reason the player travels to the Distortion World towards the end of the game is to finally defeat the main antagonist, Cyrus. This is incredibly similar to Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon, where the main character travels to Ultra Space, which is the home of the Ultra Beasts, to defeat the main antagonist, Lusamine. Yet again we see more similarities between Pokemon Sun and Moon and Diamond and Pearl. Did they use Giratina's Distortion World as an inspiration for the Ultra Space, or again, is it just a coincidence? Pokemon Sun and Moon use Hawaii as its basis for the tropical Alola region. However, when Sun and Moon was first revealed, eagle-eyed viewers found similarities between the Alola Islands and the real-life islands of Hawaii. Now one of these areas was the big volcanic mountain found on Melee Island. Its real life counterpart can be found on the island of Oahu, and it has a rather interesting name, Diamond Head. When viewers made that connection, they immediately thought that the port in Hau'oli City would be Pearl Harbor, which would complete the Diamond and Pearl conspiracy. However, when the games came out, it was discovered that this port was in fact just a ferry terminal which is used to travel the islands by boat. After that, the theory went dead. However, there is an area in Pokemon Sun and Moon that is related to Pearl Harbor that I've seen no one talk about, and this is the Aether Paradise. The Aether Paradise is an artificial island located in the middle of the Alola region, which is the Aether Foundation's main base. So how does this artificial island relate to Pearl Harbor? Well, it shares a rather similar appearance to the USS Arizona Memorial, which is a memorial that was created to pay respect to those killed during the attack of Pearl Harbor who were on the USS Arizona. It is very similar to the Aether Paradise in its appearance, and like the Aether Paradise, it can only be accessed by boat. So with the Diamond and Pearl conspiracy back on track, what do you think? Would Game Freak use Hawaii as a basis for a region just so they could reference Diamond and Pearl, or is it purely a coincidence? Let me know in the comments below. So those are 6 hints that I think the Pokemon Company have given to us to let us know Diamond and Pearl remakes are on the way. But what do you think? I think it's fair to say that some of these could be coincidental, but let's not rule anything out just yet. But anyway guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, definitely leave a like down below, I'd really appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with everything Pokemon, then hit the subscribe button down below. I'm really close to 100,000 subscribers, and your subscription would mean so much to me. I really want to hit 100k before the end of the year, and you could make that possible. so I'd really appreciate it. But anyway guys, thank you very much for watching, I hope you have an awesome day and I will see you on the next video. Peace!